Well, hello, folks. Really excited for this episode of Skipping Lunch. And actually, with my guest, it's closer to lunch for him than it is for me. But this is amazing because I heard about this project only about a little under a month ago, and I was like, "Oh, I have to talk about this." So I am really excited to have Shannon Appelcline on, who is the author of Designers and Dragons Origins, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But there's more to it than that. But welcome to the channel, and thanks for coming on, Shannon.
Thanks for having me, Wes. Thrilled to be here.
It really is fun. I'm looking forward to geeking out with you because I mean, the history aspect of things is a lot of fun. But I do like to just do a couple of get to know you questions for folks. And need to get my comments thing on here so people can actually see, I can see when people comment. I'd like to start off just letting folks kind of get to know you a little bit if they haven't encountered you before or they don't know your stuff. And the first one I always ask, because this is a weird and wonderful hobby, and it often attracts weird and wonderful people who have weird and wonderful stories about how they got integrated into it in the first place. So, for you, what first drew you into the TTRPG hobby space?
It is so far back in the mists of time that I'm not entirely sure if I'm telling the truth or if this is just my faded memory at this point, which is unfortunately a problem when I talk with other people as well. I think it was the Dungeons and Dragons cartoons, comics that ran in comic books. They had these little one-page comics that ran in Marvel Comics and other things in the 70s, and I think those were where I first learned about it.
They
I do
were
know
they were in 80s comic books. Yes, they were.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
cool.
terrific. They were right next to like the Twinkies and fruit pie ones, which were also done as one-page comic strips. But of course, the D&D ones were much cooler. You know, they were being dripped on by green slime. They were
Hmm.
fighting dragons. They were dimension dooring to new castles. Everything that seemed exciting about it. So I think those are where I saw them for the first time. I asked my dad to get me a copy. He dutifully got me one for my birthday or Christmas. It was the BX set by Tom Moldvay. And then, this is the best part of the story, he created and ran a first dungeon for me so that I could see how it worked. And yeah, he didn't understand entirely how it worked. The combat was too complex for him. And so he came up with kind of adventure game methods for killing things, like there were skeletons and you had to figure out to pick up some rocks and throw them at them, that type of stuff. But he
Oh,
ran
that's
me my
cool
first
though.
dungeon. Yeah, totally cool.
Oh, that's
That was how.
awesome. I
Yeah,
love everything about that. That think that even trumps the guy who that was on who first experienced it with a college course. No, that's really cool. That's wonderful. And your dad really just
yeah.
dove in. It's like, let's do this.
I have a terrific dad. 45 years ago, 45 years later, he's living about a mile from me. That's why I moved out to Hawaii, to be near him again. And he's helping teach me things like I have floors that I put down in this office because he showed me how to do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice having a good dad. And so was your dad like geeky nerdy already, or was this just like I saw that my son was interested in this, so I'm diving in?
It's mostly because he saw I was interested in it. I wouldn't call him particularly geeky or nerdy. He was in his professional life. He was an electrical engineer, which I guess is slightly to the geeky nerdy
It's
side. But
slightly on the geeky nerdy side, but
yeah, but you know, he's not particularly a gamer. He plays games with us every Sunday when we go and visit, but not particularly a gamer.
that's
So
all.
that made it even more exciting and special.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great. Your dad's awesome.
Yeah, great.
And give your dad a hug and let him know that the internet thinks he's awesome. I don't know if he'll care, but I that's such a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now I want to get a little bit into your personal psychology now. So there has been a reality warping event. It's changed reality as we know it. And what it's done is it's erased every genre of role playing game but one. And for some strange reason, you're the nexus of all realities and you get to choose which genre gets saved. So which genre of role-playing game do you preserve?
Wow. It's hard not to say fantasy just because that's what 95% of people are playing. But
Mhm.
I'd be tempted by, and maybe this is a little cheat, I'd be tempted by saying the modern genre. And I say it's a
Huh?
cheat because, maybe we can push urban fantasy into that. Maybe we can push in noir, detective, whatever. But I find that it has so much ability to comment on what's happening in our everyday lives and give us ways to explore it that we might not be able to just in a discussion or just in some more passive activity. And sure, we can do that in fantasy too. I've seen some great fantasies about rebelling against the evil dark elf forces and
Mhm,
whatever else,
mhm.
but modern really gives us a way to do that. So that'd be my temptation. But I know there's so much love for fantasy that's hard to say anything other than that.
I look if you're but if you're making a reality altering decision, finding the loophole's not a bad way to go. So you could pull in anything for that. I think that's great. Um it's a real I was not expecting modern as an answer with that kind of loop. That was really well done. Very well played. Have you considered running for office? Um we're not even going to go there.
I can't lie well enough.
That's that that is a skill I do not possess. Um, so one of the cool things about you, when I was just kind of um, just kind of looking up a little bit of your background, is that this current Kickstarter, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is not your first foray into TTRPG history. So,
Right.
for folks who don't know, what are some of the previous TTRPG history works that you've worked on?
Yeah, by my count, this Kickstarter that we're working on now is going to put out my sixth through ninth books on RPG history. So
Wow.
my original ones were just Designers and Dragons, no origins involved, and they are a set of company histories. The current edition is by Evil Hat, who's also doing Origins, and there's one volume each for the 70s, 80s, 90s, and odd odds that talk about companies founded or at least started publishing role playing games in that particular decade. So
Okay.
that's, like 16, 1800 pages worth of content. My most recent one, I did those about 10 years ago, and
Uh-huh.
then I took a break because other things got too busy. Uh, my most recent one, which came out, I think last year, yeah, last year, is This Is Free Trey or Beowulf. And This Is Free Trey or Beowulf, at least until the new books come out, is my absolute favorite book I've ever written. It is what I call a system history of Traveler. And so it traces Traveler, which was an old love of mine. It was one of the earlier role playing games that I got. It traces it all the way back from when Mark Miller was riding the train back and forth to university and picking up a pulp magazine every day to read, a science fiction
Oh.
pulp magazine, all the way through to Mongoose, not quite when they purchased the game, but just short of it. I actually submitted it to them. They published it, and about a month after publication, they announced, "Oh, by the way, we've bought Traveler." And I was like, "Why didn't I know that before?"
Well, didn't they publish that book?
Yes.
And they I think that's hysterical. Like, we can't tell you because of legal reasons. It's like,
Yeah, I've had this before where I finish up a history because I'm constantly writing these company histories. I send it off to the company for comments, which is part of my standard procedure for the company
uh-huh.
histories. At least they send it back. They say, "Great, we have these comments, or we don't have these comments." I publish it, and 2 days later, the company's been acquired or something. So I think they probably consider me as a journalist. I wouldn't quite call myself there, and think we better not tell them or it might get out. I can understand.
I mean, you are planning on publishing in a book, so I guess I can understand that. I am
Yeah,
fascinated because Traveler, even with the everybody knows story, has a fascinating history because
it
it's just
does.
been bounced around and there's been forks and all sorts of stuff. And when you get past the everybody knows and realize just how poorly we remember stuff, it'd be neat to come in and see like what you dug up to see like some of the behind the scenes things. So that's something when I saw that I was like, I need to read that. and I'm going to be probably hitting over to Drive Through RPG and picking it up at some point in the near future. Um, but I'm fascinated by that you are so into TTRPG history. So, aside being a history nerd, what was it that first kind of sparked you to want to write TTRPG history books?
It was that I wanted to know what had happened. Uh, I was working indexing content of role playing books to produce a listing of everything for RPGNet, which I was doing all the software work for at the time.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and so I was inputting stuff for my own collection, and I was working on Imperium Games, getting everything from them. They were the people who picked up Traveler after GDW went out of business,
Hmm.
and I purchased everything they bought up to they put out until 1997 or something. By which time I was working for Chaosium. If
Okay.
you're working in the role playing industry, you no longer have money. And so I stopped having money to buy new role playing products, and I wasn't senior enough to go to Gen Con yet where I could trade product for product to get it. So I came back, 10 years later, and I was inputting my uh, books and stuff. And I saw, wow, they put out half a dozen books after I stopped buying them. And then they went out of business. What in the world happened? And
Okay.
so I started researching it. Once I started researching it, I started writing about it because I was also the editor in chief at RPG at the time, which means I was, pushing through all the reviews and columns and stuff. And part of what I was always looking for, being a lifelong writer, was how can I create new content that will encourage other people to do the same. And
Cool.
so I started uh, doing more histories and started publishing some of them. And there was interest. And the fact that there was interest is really what's made me enthusiastic to continue through probably a couple of million words since then on history in various ways.
You've written some pretty lengthy volumes. Um, so I'm interested. I mean, you personal curiosity, I think, is a great way to jump into history. But did you have an educational background in history that kind of like led you to be able to do this, or is this all self-taught?
Uh, More self-taught, but not entirely. I mean, I've never had training in like how do you do research other than what you get out of a normal college education, where you are expected to research things. Um,
Well, that was
but
pre-AI.
yeah, uh,
Uh,
yeah. But I did have a long history with history. I had a great U.S. history teacher, David Del Porto, back in 10th grade, probably. And he did all of these fun simulations and court trials and things like that, which really encouraged everyone to engage with history in a very visceral way. I remember we played out the Haymarket trials, which were about riots that happened, and you
hmm.
know, we did that as a mock trial, and I don't remember if I was defending the rioters or trying to prosecute them, but in whatever, there were real moral questions there, and uh, Mr. Del Porto really helped us to grasp those by putting it in such a real life form for us. So when I got to college. I was studying political science for a little bit, and then I decided that was crap. And I moved to computer science, but I constantly took history courses throughout that. And so um, I have a long history of history courses. The Designers and Dragons volumes were really my proving ground for being able to write about it, though. At this
Awesome.
point, like I said, I'm 9 books in, and so I think after the first four or so, I started figuring out really what I was doing because I got the first four out, and then I got lots of feedback on them and was able to do them better after that point.
Awesome. It's absolutely fascinating. And King Eric, the greatest of all, has asked, has Shannon covered the history of TSR? Well, just wait, because we'll get there in a second. Um, so you have these the 4 volumes. You're doing the 4 volumes for Origins. There are a number of TTRPG history books that are out there right now. John Peterson is one of the big names, fantastic writer. But what's distinct about your work that makes it different from these other histories?
Um, the Biggest distinction is that I'm covering a very broad swath of history. John Peterson's three books all are mostly focused on TSR. The first one, Playing at the World, goes further back into war game
Hmm.
antecedents, and one of his other, The Elusive Shift, it talks a little bit more about the culture and stuff.
Hmm.
But talking about companies, mostly focused on slang on TSR. The Game Wizards is the other one that he did, and Ben Riggs, who is the other one that I consider a big name because he's got out
Hmm.
Slaying the Dragon, and I know he has been researching for a while third edition, fifth edition, other things in the modern day. Also, very focused on Wizards of the Coast, and
Yeah.
so my classic books before the ones we're going to talk about that we aren't quite getting to yet, they cover a lot of things. And TSR is in the first book to answer King Eric. It's in the 70s book. It's about 100 pages there, which is about a quarter of the book. But the other three quarters of the book are, Flying Buffalo, um, Game Designers Workshop. I think there's 11 companies in the first book, and then the number increases as the books go on. So that's traditionally that I cover the wider
Hmm.
industry, and I'm planning more of that as well.
Awesome. And of course, you did the full thing of the history of Traveler. Flying
Mm,
Buffalo, were they? They're the people who put out Tunnels and Trolls, correct?
that's right. And they
Okay.
started life as a play by mail company situated in originally in Hawaii, where I am right now.
No
Um,
way, really?
yeah, I
Are
think
are
I always have to look back because I've written so much at this point. But I
hmm.
think Rick Loomis got things started when he was on a military base over on Oahu. It
So
was
hey,
mainly in Arizona. That's where he ended up. But
so he
it
ended up in
started.
Arizona, but he started in Hawaii. Okay. Is does he have the distinction, or does Flying Buffalo have the distinction of being the only RPG company to start in Hawaii?
That I can think of off the top of my head. Somewhere I have a listing of all of the companies by state, and I think there may be
Okay.
one or two states that are still missing. I think he may be the only one for Hawaii.
That's kind of cool. It's a ton. Flying Buffalo was away, and then they came back not too long ago. Like they put out a new Tunnels and Trolls
Well, the new
not too
Tunnels
long
and
ago.
Trolls is from Rebellion Group, maybe.
Okay,
Rick Loomis unfortunately passed away a few years ago,
right.
and
Oh,
so
that's right. He had
uh,
he had sold it to him. That's right.
yeah,
Okay.
and so him or his estate, one or the other, sold it off, and that's great because hopefully it
Hmm.
means it will be in print and actually active and stuff again.
Be nice. People really loved it back in the day. It'd be
Yeah, it's
neat
a
to
fun
see it
old
go.
classic system. I don't think I've ever played it tabletop, but there was an old computer game, maybe from New Worlds, which was terrific, even though it crashed constantly. But it really showed off how fun the game was.
Old classic computer game has to crash constantly. Was it on five and
Yeah.
a quarter floppies, or was in diskette era?
It was either five and a quarter or three and a half. I don't know which. It was definitely discs.
Also, there's also apparently there's a huge argument going on Twitter or on TikTok right now of someone yelling at a Gen Z or millennial who's saying that 3.5 discs are floppy drives or floppy disks. Like, no, they're diskettes. I'm like, yeah, we use them interchangeably. Please go away. And
Yep.
I don't know why people can't handle two things being true at the same time. It's a little weird. So you're in now in this Designers and Dragons Origins, and we did talk about this a little bit just to go a little bit more directly in. So you've done previous volumes in the Designers and Dragons series. So how would you describe this current campaign in relationship to the previous works? Like, is this a continuation? It's not a new edition because you're covering different material. Like how would you kind of describe it for folks who see that label Designers and Dragons, and what should they expect?
Yeah, I'm hoping people will recognize Designers and Dragons just as meaning, hey, it's history books that I'm writing. It's actually the brand is on the back of This is Free Trader Beowulf too. Um, I kind of see my histories at this point as fractal now that I've done enough of them, and that we have these big scope books, and then we have books that go tighter and tighter and tighter in,
Uh huh.
and so the Designers and Dragons Origins books are basically a fractal history of TSR that covers the products, and that's again how it's different from John or Ben's books, and that they've
Mhm.
primarily been looking at either design histories. John's
Okay.
Planet the World, it traces a lot of design patterns. Are
Yep.
business histories. The Game Wizards
Game Wizards.
and Slaying the Dragon, both very much business histories. So this is a
Okay.
product history instead. These four books are product histories instead. They look at Evil Hats told me the count is 320 or so products. They look at about 320 products, and each one gets between 2 and 10 pages of coverage. And my prime thing, and I think the most exciting thing, is I always look at as much of the history of the project as I can get. So far,
Mhm.
latter days, we can't always get everything. Some books just don't have necessarily interesting stories for how they were made, but a lot of them
Mhm.
have really interesting stories for how they were made.
Yes.
And so each of these 320 articles covers an individual product: Unearthed Arcana, Oriental Adventures, the Holmes Basic Set. They're all in there. And besides the actual history, it also talks about thematic or tropes or rules or things like that were introduced in it. So it's like, the Rogues Gallery might talk a little bit about some of the uh, characters from Lake Geneva who appeared for the first time there, like maybe Bigby appeared
Oh.
for the first time in that. Morden Kanan's Fantastic Adventure definitely talks more about uh, maybe the whole Circle of Eight, maybe just four of them in that. I think the Circle came in more in Isle of the Ape, which was the next one. And so those individual topics and tropes, does this have a MacGuffin quest? Were the characters captured? Did they have their stuff taken away?
Uh-huh.
Those tropes and other things. And when did these rules appear for the first time? When did Thaco appear for the first time? So those things are all scattered in there. Each article has up to, I don't know, 6 or 7 different topics: artwork and design, origins and
Uh-huh.
history, expanding Dungeons and Dragons, which is rules, sources and tropes, Worlds of Adventure, talking about the individual settings, the
Mhm.
Creature Compendium, talking about monsters, the Rogues Gallery, talking about NPCs, and the Multimedia Connection, talking about novels, comics, computer games, which were linked. So cover
Awesome.
all of those in each of them. And so that's how it's different. And that's kind of the core of the article. You're interested in a particular product, and these four books cover OD&D, AD&D First Edition, Basic Dungeons and Dragons, and the Mistaran products that were produced for AD&D Second Edition.
Okay.
Anything that's in there produced by TSR, there's an article about in one of these four books.
And it gets back me in BX as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Can
it's
you?
all of the basic
Okay.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, it's
Holmes,
my
CX,
home's basic.
Tom Moldvay and Zeb Cook and Frank Metzger's BCMI,
Mhm.
the Rules Cyclopedia, the Black Box. It's all in there.
That's awesome. I would love to read about the black box. I'm looking forward to that. Um, so here's for folks. Now, granted, TTRPG people are a little bit different because we read large books. A lot of us do anyway. But when you look at 4 volumes, and these are not small books, when you look at the mock-up, it can look a little bit imposing for people if they're not used to reading it, particularly if you're like, "Wow, this is history and that's boring," which doesn't compute for me because I don't know why anybody thinks that. But there are strange people out there who are weirder than I am who think that history is odd. But they still might be interested in this. But that 4 volumes are going, that's a lot. So how are these volumes structured to make them more digestible for the readers?
They are organized and organized and organized all the way down. And so books 1 and 2, they cover from OD&D through AD&D First Editions in. And then
Yep.
books 3 and 4, they start with Holmes and they end with the very last Mistaran products that were put out by, I think, TSR, only as PDFs available for free online. So, first thing
Okay.
you could do is you divide it in two, and that you have those true through lines. They're both very important, and they, each show a lot of different innovation and development, but they're separate.
Yeah.
Each individual book then has like between 11 and 14 chapters in it, with each chapter covering a specific topic, like one was accessories for OD&D. I think that's chapter 2 in the first book. One was Gygax's final return to Greyhawk, which ends with the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Hmm.
I think that might be the last or the next to last chapter in book 1. There's one on the RPGA 8 adventures that they did. And so you can just go there. You could easily skim through and say, hey, I'm just interested in what he wrote about Greyhawk. And, there are 4 or 5 chapters between the first 2 books that are on Greyhawk. And then within each chapter, there are between 3 or 4 and 7, 8, 9 individual products. And so you could easily just read one individual product history. One of the things that I think was certainly not conscious, but I'm pretty sure unconscious uh, inspiration for me was this series of books called I Who. And I Who was a series of 3 books that looked at all of the Doctor Who novels that were out at the time. Because there's a very, very rich library of Doctor Who novels, especially when Doctor Who was not on the air from 1990 or whatever it was to
Yeah.
2004. And at one point I said, I'm going to collect all of these and then I'm going to read through them all. Um,
Okay. Okay.
which I'm still working on, but I managed the first 60 or 70 within a couple of years. And then I learned, hey, there's these books called I Who, each one of which has, 2 or 3 page discussion of that book. And
Oh,
so what I
okay.
would do is I would finish reading the book, I would think about it a little bit on my own, and then I'd go grab I Who and I'd see what this other person had written about it. And so I'm the Designers and Dragons Origins, anyone could totally do the same thing with, just either, hey, we've just played this adventure, or I've just read this adventure, or just, hey, I nostalgically remember this adventure. It was one of my favorites. What did Shannon write about it? And then they could go learn about the origins of it. They could, see the rules that appeared for the first time, blah, 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 all the other things that I mentioned. And one thing that I've kept consistent across almost everything that I've written lately is I have these little choose your own adventure blocks at the bottom of each article. What to read next, it's usually called.
Uh-huh.
And so, you could get done with Temple of Elemental Evil and you could say, oh, there's, also this other stuff that Frank Mincer did that I might want to read about. There's, this discussion of random dungeons that appears in this other article. There's this other thing that Gary Gygax was doing at the time. There's this time that Zugtomoy returns, that type of thing. And
Uh-huh.
so that not only do you have a possibly easy end of, I'm just going to read this one article that interests me, you can then get to the end and say, wow, that particular topic within this article interested me. I'm going to go find this other thing too. I actually have references in all of the books to things I haven't written yet because they're in, future volumes if I do them someday on 2nd edition, 3rd edition, but they're all there. So if there's more at some time, you can say, "Oh yeah, I should go read this in, 2nd edition, book 5 or whatever," because there's a
Uh-huh.
return to of Elemental Evil out at the end of the 2nd edition era,
Hmm.
or the start of the 3rd, maybe one or the other.
I was out of the hobby at that point, so I can't comment. Um, and I we'll talk about this in a second, but one of the things that I noticed in the bits that I was able to read, it's almost written in like bullet point format.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
every little bit is so digestible, and you read a full article and you don't feel like you've been inundated, and yet the information's still there. So it's the organization's really, really tight.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you like that. Uh, th- I originally wrote product histories for D&D Classics, which was the site that now is DM's Guild. When it was just PDFs of classic D&D products that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
RPG and Wizards of the Coast were putting out. So I wrote what I now consider kind of the seed of these articles now there. You can still find some of the text, they've been revised, expanded, moved around. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was writing for the website, it somehow felt um, like it made sense to do, like you say, little bullet points, not like I just have a sentence or something. It's, as you've seen, often a paragraph or 2 or 3 on a particular topic, but it made sense somehow in doing a website. I was thinking, like, what are the 5 things I want to talk about this product, that type of thing. And so when I took those seeds and I started working on these books, I kept that format, but I organized them better. And so I
Mm-hmm.
figured out, like, which ones were actually the history, and then I flowed those into my origins and other stories topic. Which ones of those were actually about the world, and so I flowed those. And so they're the bullet points, but hopefully they form nice narratives between them as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. And speaking of the little bits that I read, for people that are still going, I don't know, the 4 volumes, a little bit overwhelming. Is there any possible way that people can get a sample of what they could expect in the 4 volumes right now?
Yeah, definitely. If you go to the Backer Kit, it will Backer Kit for Designers and Dragons Origins. You will immediately see a link to 57-page preview, I think, on Evil Hat's site. If you become a backer, even for only $1, if you become a backer, then you can get access to our backers preview, which I don't know how long it is at this point, 100 some pages. Uh, and so it has a lot more articles. And as we've been hitting stretch goals, we have been increasing it, giving people more things they can read until we actually get the books published next year. In fact, there is a poll up right now because we've been polling people to ask what articles would you like to see, because we've hit our 4th stretch goal, and some accessory is going to be added as a result. And I definitely know my one that I think has the best history of the ones listed, but I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale. So I'm just hoping people will pick that one because it's got
Is
a great history on it.
the official crochet dice bags? Is that what you're going to cover? Um, I remember that was a weird part of TSR history. Um, awesome, and I do recommend for folks that first off, the link is over on that side underneath the chat box in the window. Go to that QR code, scan that, go to the backer kit, check out the rewards, and download that preview. Because what's included in the preview, I won't give away, but there's one chapter with one of the weirdest histories of a TSR book that I think
Um,
must exist.
I'm
Because it's the
interested in
only
hearing which one it is so
it's
that
the one
people
that
can.
got recalled. Like literally, it's
Uh,
like we're destroying every. And I want to fund the dig to go to the landfill to go see if like they're all sealed in plastic. Let's go find them.
yeah,
Um,
that's Alice of the Silver Princess, the original orange cover edition, and that is maybe one of the best stories in there. Um,
it's a
I think when
wild
people
story.
asked me which ones were cool to include, I said that's the one.
You really need to, and it shows so much of the dysfunction of TSR at the time.
Yeah, it
It,
is amazing how dysfunctional they were in the 80s. You know, all of our latter day history is heavily biased. And, one of the things I try to do is dig through that, much as one could dig through the landfill to try and find the lost copies of that. And the Bloom brothers, who were, 2/3 of the heads of TSR at the time, Kevin and
yeah.
Brian, other one being Gary Gygax, of course, they get all the bad rep. But they get all the bad rep because they have never really done Gen Cons. They've never gone out to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever the case is, when Gary, Brian, and Kevin were all heads of TSR, I think they call it the year with 3 presidents or something like that,
Uh-huh.
it was broken. And I think it was pretty broken until Lorraine Williams took over. And all of the, again, biased stories that we get suggest she didn't like gamers and didn't have much respect for them. So even when she was coming up with great ideas like the black box, the
Mm-hmm.
dragon cards that were in it were her idea to really, provide an educational content that would get people into the game. Still dysfunctional from what we could see. I think the whole history of TSR is dysfunction, but I think that's true for some decent percentage of the industry. I mean, I've worked at a company that was definitely dysfunctional in the industry.
I mean, I think it's mostly just humans that tend to be dysfunctional anytime we get together. So when we have a
Yeah,
company, it's official dysfunction. It's a little bit
I
different.
think role playing companies have a particular problem with it because they're so often run by designers who aren't necessarily businessmen. And so they're coming up with great ideas. They're magnificent designers,
Right.
but the company's small enough that they can't necessarily afford to get the businessmen in. When they get the business people in. When
Yeah.
they get the business people in, it doesn't necessarily complement things because they don't necessarily understand the hobby. So
Mhm.
I think it's just always been a tough connection.
Well, and it's so much when you have creative types and designer types, I mean, our instinct is to, like, distrust the people who are all about the money
Yeah,
because they don't
that
care
was
about the
definitely
vision,
going
they
on the
care about
best
getting the funds back. And I don't know if you have you seen the show on Apple TV, but Mythic Quest? Have you
No,
seen that one?
I have not.
It's about a dysfunctional game, computer game software company, and
Hmm.
it's one of the funniest things that I've watched in a really long time. And uh, literally, there's a scene where they're talking to the customer service rep, who's this Minnesota nice, like, oh, da, 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 da. And a little girl comes in on like women in tech industry day, and goes, "When I grow up, I want to be like you." And she goes, "No, you don't," and like scares the kid away. But it's like that's the type of dysfunction they're going into, and it's that. But there's one character who's all about the monetization, and everybody hates
Mhm.
him, but he's getting the thing done.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating concept.
I have to take a list. Look, Apple TV is on my list to get back to sometime so I can watch Murderbot.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
I
and
love the book.
if you get a chance, the Pluribus show that just came out is freaky, and so is Severance. Like, oh my gosh.
Severance I have adored. The Pluribus I definitely want to see because, I loved everything else he's done, Breaking Bad and
Yeah,
such.
the Pluribus and Wondla is also really good, but I want to go read the books now. And thank you, Miss. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning for offering a gift membership to Norwolf. That's so kind of you to do. But we're way off topic now. But the
Yeah, no
dysfunction of
Murderbot in TSR that I know of.
no, but well, I mean, if you want to include
Maybe
part
it's
of
Star
Expedition to the
Frontier,
Carrier
Gamma World.
Peaks or Gamma World, yes, there's definitely murder bots in Gamma World, which is one of my favorite games. But let's talk about this current campaign, and
Sure.
we're flying through stuff right now. So if you guys have questions in chat, go ahead and ask them. And my ear trumpet has been struck by lightning, which is his actual username from Australia. Finished mid binging Murderbot on Sunday. I loved the ending of Murderbot. It was so good. I will not give it away. Um, so currently the campaign is live on BackerKit. And for folks who are thinking about, like, well, this sounds interesting, I'll have to get to it at some point. How many days are left in the current campaign?
There are only 9 days left, so we are getting close to the end.
Yes, um, and which TTR we talked about this, you've mentioned already, but which TTRPG company is behind this current edition that's being done?
Yeah, it's Evil Hat who's putting it out. They have done absolutely gorgeous graphic design for it. I put out the words and then I send it off to a company, and I am just shocked when it comes back how good it looks. This one looks really nice.
It's
Um,
from the preview, it is beautiful. And I'm like, we're doing an interview and I'm gushing, but they did a really good job. And for folks who are worried, like, well, is this actually going to come out? Is this going to be something we can trust? Evil Hat has a very good reputation among the TTRPG space, so we're very glad that they are
yeah,
behind this.
and besides that, all four books are in, all four books are edited, all four books are laid out, all four books have the covers done. We sent it off to the proofreaders, I think, at the start of November, and we expect to see it back from them. I think the end of December is when we have that. So next year, we just need to put in all the corrections for the things that I got wrong from the proofreaders and then print it, and it's done.
That's like you've answered one of my questions, like how much of the work has been done. That much is you're way on. So people, the work's there. They just have to get through the printing. Although that is a nightmare in itself nowadays. Um, Couple of things for this. And the first thing is in the preview. One of the things that I found really interesting is that there is an absence of footnotes or other references for the things that you are quoting. So, and somewhere inside the volumes, do you have a compilation of the sources that you use and kind of like pointing to where they apply?
Yeah, no, it would have been impossible for this book.
Okay.
It also this book also had an early Genesis. So you've seen this as I guess you haven't seen this as Free Trade or Beowulf. Um, my current volumes are heavily footnoted. This is Free Trade or Beowulf and some new company histories I'm working on. Uh,
Okay.
these books had their genesis in 2014. I think I wrote the first product history, and
Okay.
so I didn't really know that people were interested in footnotes at this time. But I think they would have been impossible for this. And so even when I've been producing new ones, I haven't dove into it. And most of my articles, they run 10, 20, 30 pages. The TSR one, like I said,
Hmm.
ran 100. And I might have uh, 20, 30, 40 footnotes, not footnotes, endnotes for those listing out my references.
Okay.
These ones, like I said, ran 2 to 10 pages. And I might reference 10 or 20 things looking at them. And so I'd love to have all of the references for where quotes came from. I kind of wish I did now, but also I would have had to produce a fifth book to go with these four that would have just been
Just to
referenced.
like bin the volume of the references that goes in the side. That might be a good digital thing to add at the future. It's like, hey, this is the stuff. Which is
I do have a couple of pages near the end where I list the best sources people should go to for various things, but they're pretty high level. But I mentioned, hey, go to this wiki or this chronicle or this magazine, and it tends to cover this topic in depth. Some of the best
yep.
forums, that type of thing.
It would be cool. I mean, this is a neat, almost like dictionary or encyclopedic reference to all the material. So it's neat from that point alone. But one of the things that Peterson and others are doing, because this has become such an academic field, is these
Yeah.
all their primary source material they're getting, they're all like putting in libraries and stuff. So it'd be
Hmm.
just neat to see where all the rabbit trails went. But as it is,
Yeah.
it's still beautiful and really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And rabbit trails are in my newest company histories, and when we revamp all of them as third edition, I'm going to record as much as I can there. So we're going to see them in all the things where it's more possible. And for this is Free Trade or Beowulf, there's hundreds of references. I went through, I think my estimate was about 300 magazines alone, traveler magazines alone.
uh-huh. Well, there's so much material for Traveler because it's been around so long, but
Yeah.
it's been continuous and it's just been so interesting the way that different versions have everybody's been fighting over
And
them.
there's such an extensive fandom for it that really not only added to it, but also generally gave venues for discussing it and discussing news.
Really cool stuff. I'm like I said, I want to go read the Traveler history. That sounds really fascinating. Um, One of the things I did notice on the site, and let me bring this up quick for folks who want to see the Kickstarter site. Let me get we should still be seen. There we go. So this is the Kickstarter site, folks. And one of the interesting things that I saw in the rewards, there's a nice little shot of the volumes, um, is that
Yeah.
you are offering EPUB versions of these books, which I thought was really interesting. Let's go to the back thing. So PDF, print on demand, or EPUB is kind of like the basic model, and then you can get the actual box set, which is I guess that's the offset print. But EPUB I
Hmm.
thought was really interesting, especially because when you look at the PDF version, it is this highly stylized layout that is beautiful and organized and so easy to flow. But a EPUB is a completely different beast because EPUBs are such text primary and they're designed to reflow. I was excited by it. So, but have you seen any of the work on the EPUB yet? Like, how are they trying to bring in the distinctiveness of the layout into this more text based format?
Yeah, I have not seen the EPUBs yet. So I do not know how they will do it. But when I sent it off to them, it was just one flowed file of text. There's no boxes or anything that would make this complex. Uh,
Okay,
Prime graphical element are the covers that are depicted for each.
hmm,
So I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but it would be pretty easy to, have the cover lead off each article or even drop out the cover, though I hope that won't happen. But,
you can't do
they're
that. No. So
Yeah. Hopefully not. But as long as it's easy to just include it in, it's just that one cover, sometimes two or three covers when there were revised covers, and the main flow of the text. It should be pretty easy for them because of the lack of boxes. And there are EPUBs for my original Designers and Dragons, I'm pretty sure.
that was my next
And
question. So
yeah, I think there are.
I'll go back and look. Are they going to? Do you know if they're going to be released DRM free?
Uh, I have no idea on the EPUBs. The drive-through PDFs clearly will be, and we also have audiobooks. And in fact, the only chance to get a DRM-free copy of the audiobook is through this backer kit, because when they uh, go out, they will be through whatever service that puts DRM on it, but we can just distribute copies now and they will be DRM free. So if you want DRM free audiobooks, this backer kit is the way to get them.
That's cool. Do you know like who's narrating it? Did you get some like a name to narrate?
We got Elliott, who did all of the original books, and we have received great feedback for everyone that he did a terrific job. So we definitely had him back. So
Awesome. That's so cool. I the audiobook just for accessibility alone, but for folks who just want to listen to it while they're driving, that's pretty
yeah,
cool.
so not James Marsters or someone, but someone who did a great job already.
We got Idris Elba to do the reading of our Designers and Dragons, which I actually that would be kind of fascinating. Um, so you have a bunch of stretch goals that you've hit. There is a listing on the site, but you have a super secret one that's still kind of out there that hasn't been hit. Um,
Wow.
I'm not going to
All of,
ask you for it, so
no,
can
no,
you?
all of the stretch goals have been the same, which is we don't want to overburden things. We don't want to, make this more complex. I definitely, in my company histories, increasingly as I've gone into the tens, have way too many stories of companies that have ruined themselves by with their stretch goals.
Hmm.
So each of our stretch goals for Designers and Dragons Origins has been to expand the preview backers preview. Each time we hit a goal, we put up a poll and we ask people out of these 10 or 15 books that we've selected, probably about 10, which one excites you the most. People answer the poll, they vote, one of them wins, and then we add that to the backer preview. So we just
Awesome.
hit our fourth stretch goal at $140,000. And that's the poll right now that we're saying, what accessory would you like us to add to the backers preview? And the next 160,001, I don't actually know what topic people will choose. Maybe setting books. I don't know. There aren't a lot of setting books from this era. Something, and then we will put out the one that people are the most interested in. So
Okay.
hope that a couple more of these and be able to put a couple more things. And anyone who is on Blue Sky can follow me there. Just look for Shannon Appelcline. And every time we do one of these polls, after the poll comes out, I talk a little bit about the top products and what I think and what they might be interesting or not.
Oh, awesome. This really looks like a fascinating series, and I'm a little upset with you because now you've given me multiple books I have to go back and read. Because I don't have a queue that's taller than I am at this point, but I'm actually really looking forward to it, and the fact that it's so digestible in that kind of encyclopedia format is has me really excited. So you had
I have some
said, "Oh, go ahead.
I have
I'm sorry."
bad news, which is I'm working on other books right now too. I have, I think, three more I'm going to hand to Evil Hat in about 6 months, which are more company histories,
Can you
going back.
reveal the companies, or you still have to hold that close to the chest?
Well, there are three volumes, and they are two of them are called The Lost Histories, and The Lost Histories cover all of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and odd odds again with people that I did not get to the first time around.
Okay.
And the second one is the tins, and the tins covers uh, 20, 30 something
Okay.
companies from the tens. And so some of the people that I include in there. So the tens, I had on my desk yesterday my final edit of Free Alingen, the Free League.
Free
Uh,
League.
yeah, and Modifius is in there too. And so those were kind of the two biggest ones from the tens, but got Frog God, Sin Nominee, Northwind Adventures, Necrotic Gnome, Nocturnal Media, Onk's Path, uh, Darker Hue Studios, Sage Kobold. There was someone who ruined themselves with a Kickstarter. Magpie Games, Monty Cook Games. If there's anyone that's big, and some people aren't, Critical Role, MCDM, Hit Point Press, all in the tens. The
Awesome.
tens is actually an extra sized volume. Um, but going back to the 70s, it's a lot more people that maybe you've heard legends of, but you don't really know who they are. Like Balboa Game Company, who put out Warlock, one of the first variant D&D games.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
We Warriors, who did some of the very early products for D&D and were actually sold by TSR for a while. Little Soldier Game, Ragnarok Enterprises, and going into and also classic miniatures companies who I didn't really cover in the original, like Ralph Partha and Grenadier, both have long histories in there.
Oh,
Uh,
neat.
yeah, and so I talk about the games of Fashan, who put out one product called The Spawn of Fashan, which, when I was growing up in the industry, at least, was the legendary horrible game due to a review in Dragon magazine that no one had ever actually seen because he only ever sold like 20 or 30 companies in early days, copies in early days.
Uh-huh.
Um, some more recent ones. I have Britannia, who owns Chivalry and Sorcery nowadays. I have Savage Mojo, who put out a variety of kind of portal system settings. I have Rogue Games, Buried Without Ceremony, and I have the whole foundation of the OSR and First Edition Society, Goblinoid Games, Mythmere Games, Piper Publishing, and Black Blade Publishing. So, when I hand those off to Evil Hat,
Uh-huh.
40 more companies? No,
That's
more than that.
awesome.
Uh, a considerable number. And those ones, they're meant to kind of complement the original series. And after
Cool.
that, we're going to start looking into a third edition, which is going to put them all probably in encyclopedia format. But right now, we want to get these out to people who had the original books and constantly ask, where's the tens? When are we going to see the tens?
Oh, that's
The
awesome.
answer is maybe next year.
Well, please come back and talk with me about it because I've really
Sure.
enjoyed this. Question when you talk about the OSR, I know it's not a company. Did you cover Basic Fantasy RPG at all?
Yeah, it's in there. It's the company bit. Given that I decided that as kind of what my focus was going to be, it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes limit me. And
Yeah.
limitations there, often good things. There are sometimes bad things. And so, basic fantasy role playing, it gets a little coverage. I think when I talk about Ostrich, because you can't talk about Ostrich
Bastard.
without talking
Yeah.
about basic fantasy, because they were being developed at the same time. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get a full description for
Well,
those
it's
various.
not a company, so there's not really a
Yes.
company history to look at. But what's cool about it is the entire history of the project is on Chris Gonnerman's listserv, not his listserv,
Hmm.
his bulletin boards. So like literally all the information is there. Like you can read the whole development thread. Which I one day I'm hoping that there's a historian who wants to look at open source gaming and just goes, "Holy crow!" because it's literally right there.
Yeah, Sword and Wizardry, similarly, you can see a lot of the original development off of the threads. Oh, but when you have something like that, it becomes so intensive and extensive to try and go through all of that.
Yeah,
But
sometimes trying to find the or follow the threads is a bit of a headache.
yeah,
So yeah, it's several weeks of work just to read one subject.
yeah,
Always a fun time. So I have just had a great time chatting about this. Folks, go over to the. I'm trying to get to the right level. Go over to the QR code underneath the chat box and scan that and go to the site and back this. I have to figure out what I'm backing. You people keep making me spend money. It's all a
yeah.
conspiracy. But this looks really fascinating. And if you are in doubt, folks, download the preview because it's really, really well designed. It's so easy to read. And if you just want a little bit of and the cat showed up, you just want a little bit of information and some rabbit trails to run. This is a great way to go. So, um, I am going to, we're just about an hour. I'm going to go and say goodbye to folks and close things out, but please stay on the line just so I can thank you properly before we sign off for tonight. This was awesome. Congratulations on successfully funding the Kickstarter and the fact that it is all written. For folks who are interested in it, the proofreading is getting back by you said by the end of December.
I think that's where we have it on the schedule right now.
So are you planning on shipping like early in 2026, or is it going to be more mid-tier?
I think it's listed. I think we have it listed as mid.
Okay. Will the PDFs be coming out early?
I think we have them listed as the same time.
Rats.
But I'm not actually sure. You know, I handed off to Evil Hat, and thankfully they deal with that type of stuff. But I'm pretty sure we have it listed as late spring or summer for when
Okay.
everything's going to be published.
Give you all some really good summer reading, so please go check that out. All right, I'm going to sign off. Please stick on the line. I'll be right back. Folks, that was awesome. Shannon is a great guest. I have read the preview front to cover, and it has me really excited to go check out not only these 4 volumes, but the earlier volumes and that Traveler book, which you can find on Drive-Thru RPG. I should put links to all this in the description after I get done here tonight. Really, really cool stuff. And we want more histories of role-playing games. So the stuff that we think we know or have been kind of misremembered, passed on through history, we can get through some of the cruft and get to the really even more interesting stories that have happened that brought this hobby to us. So go check it out. I really encourage folks to back this if you are interested in that, and or if not, for one of your history nerds, say, here's something you haven't studied before. It should be a good time. So coming up on the channel, I'm still working on my Star Trek Adventures read through. I've got my last reflection from Gamehole Con is videoed. I have to find time to edit it and put it up. And I'm hoping to get Scrat on for um, an interview very soon. We had to cancel it because I was sick. So we'll get that up and a couple other things. And folks, we have King Eric, the greatest of all, asking how much will they be? Well, King Eric, the greatest of all, we'll put Shannon back on screen really quick and we'll look at the pledge levels right here. So if you want the box set, PDF, POD, and EPUB, it's $200. So that's a little pricey, but that's for the offset print box set. PDF, POD, and EPUB is $80. Audiobooks are $80. You can get a box set with audio for $250. You can get the PDF, POD, which is print on demand, so that's a shipped at cost to you. EPUB, an audiobook for $160, and a build your own. So if you just want maybe one of the volumes, you can do it through that. Or you can
get just one volume in PDF, but the print books are only going out in the slipcases for this. If you want individual print books, they'll be available through stores down the line.
Yep.
But the build your own is how to get just one thing if you want it as a PDF or one audiobook, whatever.
Yep. So you can build your own thing. I'm really thinking about that $80 tier. When I just backed Dark Space today, darn it. But it just looks so nice. So that's how much it's going to cost, Eric. So and we brought Shannon back in and didn't let him know that we were doing it. So great. I'm going back off and pulling you off screen so you can pet your cat again. But that's all the stuff that's going on. Please go check it out. It's really worth checking out, folks. I'm going to take that thing off there. And until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.